Interview 1. From sleeping on cardboard in the streets of Manila to becoming one of boxing's most celebrated champions, Manny Pacquiao's journey seemed almost impossible. He rose from severe poverty, captured world titles across 8 weight divisions, built a massive fortune, and became a national icon in the Philippines. Yet behind the fame and success, Pacquiao faced another kind of battle: legal disputes, financial setbacks, political disappointments, strained relationships, and personal challenges that gradually put pressure on everything he had built. His fists defeated countless opponents, but life presented challenges that boxing could never solve. Extreme poverty is something many people can hardly imagine, especially when simply finding the next meal becomes more important than chasing a dream. Manny Pacquiao, born Emmanuel Dapadran Pacquiao on December 17, 1978, in Kibawe, Bukidnon, Mindanao, grew up in a family of 6 children that struggled to survive. His childhood was marked by hardship, with reports describing just how desperate the family's situation became. In many parts of Mindanao, poverty was a daily reality, and families often worried about basic food and shelter rather than comfort or luxury. Manny's childhood became even more difficult after his parents separated when his father left the family. His mother, Dionysia, was suddenly responsible for raising 6 children with extremely limited resources. There was little financial security to rely on, meaning the family had to find ways to survive on their own. Manny began working from a very young age, selling bread, collecting recyclable materials, and taking whatever small jobs he could find to contribute to the household. His childhood was quickly replaced by responsibility because survival came first. Education eventually became difficult to continue when his family desperately needed income. Manny left school after the 6th grade, choosing to work instead of continuing his education. He had no guaranteed future and no clear path to success, but he understood that earning money was necessary if he wanted to help his family survive. By the age of 12, his life was already moving in a completely different direction. Interview 2. With almost nothing to his name, Manny decided to leave home and pursue boxing seriously. He traveled to General Santos City, where he stayed with his uncle Sardo Mahia in a modest 1-story home. His uncle had never worked as a professional boxing coach, yet he became Manny's earliest trainer and introduced him to the fundamentals of the sport. There were no modern gyms, expensive equipment, elite trainers, or professional recovery teams. Manny had to rely on basic facilities, worn-out gear, relentless practice, and an enormous amount of determination. The young boy who had once sold bread to help his family was gradually developing into a dangerous fighter. There was nothing glamorous about his training environment. No luxury facilities, no famous coaches, and no advanced technology, only old gloves, hard work, and a dream that seemed far too ambitious for someone from his background. By the time Pacquiao was 15, people around General Santos had started noticing his unusual talent. He competed in tough local bouts, sometimes fighting in public spaces where crowds gathered around the action and money was placed on the fighters. Those early experiences helped shape the aggressive style that would eventually make him famous around the world. Manny became known for constant pressure, rapid combinations, explosive movement, and the courage to keep attacking, but Pacquiao understood that staying in General Santos would limit his opportunities. If he wanted to become a professional boxer, he needed to reach Manila. As a teenager, he secretly boarded a ship heading toward the capital, taking a massive gamble without knowing what awaited him. It wasn't a comfortable journey backed by money or connections, it was a desperate decision fueled by his belief that boxing could change boxing's life. Manila provided opportunities, but it was also incredibly unforgiving to young people arriving with nothing. When Manny reached the city, he had no permanent place to stay and reportedly slept on pieces of cardboard. During the day, he found small ways to earn money, including selling food to workers and helping around boxing gyms in exchange for opportunities to train. His life became a constant struggle between earning enough to survive and finding time to pursue his boxing dream. At around 14, Pacquiao was already doing difficult work, including construction jobs, while trying to continue training. Food was not guaranteed, and there were moments when every bit of money mattered. He sometimes had to decide whether to spend what little he earned on himself or send money back to his family. Long before the championships, fame, and enormous wealth, Pacquiao was already making sacrifices that would shape the rest of his life. Then came a major breakthrough. At only 16 years old, Manny officially began his professional boxing career. In January 1995, he made his debut as a junior flyweight against Edmund Ignacio and came away with a victory. The amount he earned was tiny compared with the fortunes he would eventually make, but for Manny, that first professional paycheck represented something much bigger. It proved that boxing could potentially provide a way out of poverty. His journey, however, was far from easy. Pacquiao continued fighting, learning, and improving while facing opponents who tested him at every stage. The same determination that had pushed him through poverty continued driving him forward. In 1998, just a few years after turning professional, Pacquiao reached a defining moment in his career. He defeated reigning champion Chachai Sasakal to capture the WBC flyweight title, becoming a world champion while still remarkably young. For Filipinos, the achievement carried enormous emotional significance. The teenager who had once struggled to afford food and slept on cardboard was suddenly standing at the highest level of professional boxing. His victory signaled the emergence of a new national hero. A young man who had left school because of poverty was now becoming a world champion, and his story was only beginning. Interview 3. Standing on the global stage with a championship belt around his waist, Manny Pacquiao became more than a boxer. For millions of Filipinos facing poverty, his journey represented hope, a reminder that a difficult beginning did not necessarily determine the ending. His success showed that extraordinary dreams could sometimes become reality. But the same hunger that helped Pacquiao escape poverty also pushed him to take enormous risks. Boxing was not simply a sport for Manny, it was the foundation of his future. In 1996, he faced Rustico Torrecampo, an opponent many believed Pacquiao could handle. However, the fight took an unexpected turn when Torrecampo landed a decisive punch and stopped Manny only 30 seconds into the third round. It became the first professional loss of Pacquiao's career. For many fighters, losing is an unavoidable part of boxing, but Manny experienced the defeat differently. His entire future was tied to his career, and there was no wealthy family or alternative path waiting for him. Every setback felt like a threat to the life he had worked so hard to build. Instead of allowing the defeat to define him, Pacquiao responded with an incredible 15-fight unbeaten run. He rebuilt his confidence, improved his technique, and began attracting serious attention from boxing promoters and international fans. His aggressive style and remarkable speed quickly made him one of the most exciting young fighters in the sport. That momentum eventually led to a major achievement when Pacquiao captured the WBC Flyweight Championship by defeating Chachai Sasakal. The victory transformed his reputation. Promoters began seeing him as a valuable star, Filipino fans embraced him as a national hero, and international audiences started paying attention to the explosive fighter from Mindanao. Yet another major challenge arrived in 1999 when Pacquiao faced Medgone Singsarat. Singsarat entered the contest undefeated, and Manny was expected to continue building his championship reign. Instead, the fight became another painful chapter in his young career, as Pacquiao was stopped in the third round, leaving him with another major setback to overcome. Interview 4. The defeat marked Pacquiao's second professional knockout loss, and it also cost him the world championship he had won less than a year earlier. Once again, he found himself facing the possibility that everything he had worked for could disappear. What made the defeat even more painful was the way the fight had started. Manny appeared confident and dangerous early on, but once again the third round became his downfall. A single perfectly timed shot changed the entire fight, reminding him how quickly everything could be taken away inside the ring. For a young boxer approaching his early 20s, suffering 2 knockout losses could easily have ended the momentum of a promising career. Pacquiao, however, refused to follow that path. Instead of allowing the setbacks to break him, he changed his approach and made one of the biggest decisions of his career, moving up in weight. The decision came with serious risks. Bigger weight classes meant facing naturally larger and stronger opponents, something many champions would hesitate to do. Manny accepted the challenge anyway. Rather than staying comfortable at one weight, he continued climbing through survive ONS and testing himself against increasingly difficult competition. Over the next 2 decades, that decision helped create one of boxing's most remarkable careers. Pacquiao eventually became the first and only boxer to capture recognized world championships across 8 weight divisions. He also collected lineal championships in 5 divisions and won major world titles across 4 different decades. His accomplishments transformed him from a talented Filipino fighter into a global sporting superstar. By 2015, Pacquiao's pay-per-view appearances had reportedly generated more than $1 billion in revenue. The numbers were almost impossible to connect with his childhood. This was the same young boy who had once slept on sidewalks, struggled to find food, and sacrificed his own needs to help his family survive. Along the way, Pacquiao defeated numerous elite fighters and championship-level opponents across multiple weight classes. With every major victory, his reputation grew larger, eventually turning a once unknown fighter from the Philippines into one of the most recognizable names in boxing.